Ladies and
like,
gentlemen, welcome to
do
the
you have to do?
what election? What election are we
You'll
on?
get-
The imposter.
It's the fourth.
Welcome to the fourth Guardian debate election. I'm not your host, Prot.
Gaming.
And I'm your host. And I'm your host, Tenko.
Oh boy.
And today, we're going to be doing the fourth debate of Montroig's Guardian.
Are you gonna live stream the video? Or you?
Um,
Is there? Okay.
I mean, I'm
Someone-
recording this.
I'm literally live streaming right now. I've got a prime
I didn't see it. I
camera
didn't
angle.
see it.
I've
I
got a
didn't see it.
prime
I thought
camera
you were
angle
still
of
on that
two
rudder from the
candidates that showed
Titanic.
up.
all right, may I start?
Wait. Okay, good now.
Wait, what did
Alright.
you do?
I
So,
just
for our first question,
doesn't
we
work.
have,
Damn.
what political party do you belong to, if you do belong to one?
What's the
9.12,
order?
you can go first.
Yeah, I'm independent.
All right. How about you, Quasar?
I'm a representative of the SMP, the Socialist Montroig Party.
Awesome. Good. Next question.
Wait, what
What
about everyone else?
political-
Wait.
You can just skip candidates here.
You've got to ask
Specific
Symbol.
Guardian, state them now, please. Mining Boy 12.
What,
Sorry,
what'd
you forgot
say?
to ask. You forgot to ask.
You
Symbol
forgot. Yeah,
what
you forgot.
candidate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
you
more
skipped over
candidates.
candidates.
Zimmel not an actual candidate?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
Symbol
am.
is.
I didn't know there were three candidates. I'm sorry. CoColaxxative. What's your
Oh.
party?
What?
He's just
No,
it's
it's not.
hating
It's
our
not
team.
Coco. It's Symbol. Symbol's
I'm
the other
sorry,
candidate.
I'm in trouble right now. I don't know
It's
who's
fine.
doing what's what.
It's
Okay.
fine.
DM
Mr.
list.
Zimbel, what is your political party?
Oh yeah. So I'm running for the BMP or Barry. Wait, no.
Yeah.
BPM, Barry's Party of Montroig. I always get that mixed up.
British National Party.
Alright. Next question. Any specific plans as Guardian? If so, state them now, please. We'll start in the same order. Mining Boy 12, you go first.
Oh God, I have a massive thing. Do you want me to wait till last? Do you want me to go over it all?
Does anyone have a shorter list?
Oh, and Discord's dying. It's great. I'm
So
not
I
gonna
guess
blame
we'll
you.
start off with Quasar.
So any plans as Guardian?
Yeah. Any big plans, like big projects that you plan?
Yes, so since colonization of the New World opens up soon for Old World powers, we're planning on establishing a town and a presence in the New World, although we only want a very small area to keep as much of the land to the new players as possible, obviously. Apart from that, I want to keep helping with the military build-up we're doing so that we can actually have a well-equipped army. With the Ministry of Infrastructure, I would like to help them continue to build. After with Taroha, we still have to help with the New Hanoi and Baldia as well. There's a lot of build up to do there. Apart from that, my plans are to reach out to other nations and other democracies and attempt to tie us more diplomatically so that we don't have to rely so much on Oldrash for protection, since currently we are pretty much 100% reliant on them, and I'd like to get us to a place where we aren't in case, since if a independence referendum I'm pretty sure is on the cards at some point in the future, I would like to make sure that if it happens we aren't like immediately killed.
Well, how about you, Mr. Zimbel?
Yes, so as you probably already read, my campaign motto for this election is Panem et Circenses, so this is of course Latin for bread and games, which is really gonna be what I'm trying to accomplish in my term in office. So of course the game part, I want to expand New Hanoi and revitalize the area by building big complex for holding the pan-Revnir games. If you haven't heard, multinational competition of its sports, and also the bread part of my slogan, I do want to help develop the social system and ensure that uh, food and well, social housing is provided for everyone.
All right. Is that all?
Yeah.
All right. Now you may go, Mining Boy 12.
Okay, I have like a 3-point plan. I thought too much running into this one. Streamlining of voting process and private ballots. Voting is currently a more clunky system with many flaws. I plan to streamline the voting process so everyone is equally represented. A major part of this portion is private ballots for all votes, not just elections. So your voting preference will be secret, and there will be consistent patterns in voting. So no before yes isn't a thing that happens anymore. I also propose more constitutional reform because the Constitution, no offense, XD, but it's rather short in its basic sense, and so it's a bit vague in the way power is derived. And so I feel like there should be defined clauses for the way executive power is derived in the power of the government. So there is clear lines drawn between overreach and non-overreach, and a more official way of writing the impeachment procedure and implementing a more advanced system of checks and balances. So if something is slightly crossing the line, it can be pushed back within the lines to prevent authoritarian action. And I also believe in an independence referendum. It's a huge and primary issue. And I don't blame anyone in this room for it, but there seems to be a gag rule on the whole thing. And I plan to just completely remove that and allow people to be heard. Oh, I'm getting the thing. Oh, timing out. Oh, God. No.
You only have to click. You only have to click to undo it. You don't have to move.
Okay,
that it?
that's good. Yeah.
Hey, where's Gamer Blocks and all? Where's Gamer Blocks
I
and all
think
this?
he pulled out of the campaign.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, you took so long to get on.
What? No, it was worth it.
Oh, that means Zimble will be on too as well. So
So that means that you so that means that you will be reforming the Constitution, correct?
Yes, huge constitutional reforms to strengthen the power of the Constitution and to limit the power to prevent authoritarian action and overreach.
All right. So for our third question, we have: are there any smaller things you're going to do when you first get into office? Let's start with Mining Boy 12.
I really have my big points outlined, but my smaller points, I believe that when you enter the country, you should be given a set amount of money so you could spend, knowing how hard it is to get on the server, so you can spend like a week where you can pay off taxes and not be kicked out automatically. I also believe that there should be financial incentives for growing new cities, such as, okay, who is that?
it's X. Ignore him.
Revitalization of dying towns, including investments in business when they start to appear to encourage the economic growth. I also hold for the idea of an outpost in New Athnear and want to support more democratic institutions across both Rathnears and want to have greater economic cooperation with our neighbors.
Oh, all right. How about you, Fraser?
Yeah, I would like to say I agree with Mining Boy on quite a lot of those points. I also agree that while the Constitution is certainly in a much better state than it was when I first took power, it could serve to be expanded much more. So one act that I would like to pass, although I will probably do it this week rather than by the time I'm Guardian, but something that really needs to get done is I would like to pass an act officially, because it's technically illegal because of the Constitution with slavery, but I would like to pass a law which states that if any slave enters Montroig lands, they are officially considered free. And they will not be given back to their owner should the owner request it. They will be considered a free, not citizen, but a free person. And they will be able to apply for citizenship should they wish. That's a big one that I've been wanting to do now. Apart from that, same with New Rathnear. I would like to help. I would also like to help spread democracy. Pardon?
Sorry, my mom asked me for what I wanted to eat.
That's fair enough. I would like to spread democracy as I've been doing in Old Rathnir. I'd like to help spread that to New Rathnir as well. There are many imperialist and monarchist kingdoms that could do with their people deserving more rights, certainly, if not going to fight for their own freedom. I also agree with doing more diplomatic ties. That's been something that I've always done a lot of, and I very much enjoy, and I will continue to do a lot of as well. There's many nations around Rathnir that we could do to be closer to. I would just like to respond quickly to one point brought up by Mining Boy about something he said about a gag order on independence, and I would just say I have no idea what he's talking about. Never said anything.
What I was saying is I wasn't blaming you, but it seems like just discussion of it, not even anything implicitly for or against it, just the simple name of it just gets things completely destroyed in voting.
Oh, okay. I don't really. I still don't really know what that means. Anyone's allowed to talk.
You're not part of it. You're not part of it.
Okay, sure enough. Well then, yeah, fair enough. I also agree with the limits on the Guardian's power. That would be something I would like to pass quite quickly as well. I technically don't have much power right now, but that's more because I haven't been searching for workarounds to it. I'm sure if I wanted to, I probably could find a few workarounds. So we should work. Everyone should work together to try and close those. So yeah.
What? All right. And how about you, Mr. Zimble? What is a thing that you plan to pass when you first get into office?
Well, so I've been thinking about this, and I think what I'm gonna be engaging in is animal protection. So, as you may know, it is the common practice to hold animals in small pens, and I find this unjust, especially because of my religious convictions. I know that is that we are secular, and I am not going to force my religion on anyone. But still, I would like to protect animals and not only humans in Ravnir. And yeah.
Has anyone
Wait.
talked about some stuff?
Yeah, we're in the middle of it, gamer.
We've talked about some stuff.
I get some to eat.
Yes, Phil.
Can you give me my rolls back? I left the server because it's very late, and I just want my rolls back.
I already gave you rolls back last time. Did you do it again?
Can I oh. Okay, next
Okay,
question.
I wasn't done completely. I'm on. Yes, so else I pretty much agree with my other competitors in most points, but one thing I do not agree with is the planned constitutional reforms by Mining Boy 12, I believe it was. As I see, the constitution is working currently, and as they say, never change the running system. And I don't really see any way in which the Guardian, for example, has too much power in our current system. So that is one thing I wanted to say.
I would not know.
Do I have time for a counter argument for that?
Tenko, you have to give him the floor. He asked for it.
Yeah, I'm letting him. I just said that.
Oh, you
didn't pick up on the mic.
Sorry.
What I'm saying is that if you read the Constitution itself, it says that the executive power is held by the Guardian, that the only things that can limit it is impeachment from high crimes and misdemeanors. What does that mean? It is undefined, and it doesn't even detail impeachment procedures. I plan to clearly define the power that's held by the executive, not just saying the executive holds the power.
I would like
to illustrate a clear process. Go ahead.
There are other bills that define the limits, as well as impeachment. Impeachment's a clearly defined process. If you read all of Internet Kiwi's laws, it goes into it in all of them.
I did.
Yeah, well then you should know that impeachment is caused by a 2/3 majority vote in Parliament that can be brought up in any Congress.
And when's the trial?
It's not. It's not specifically a trial. It's
Exactly. There needs to be a bit more to it.
Congress to be impeached. Okay, well, I'm just letting people know that it's not as undefined as you seem to claim it was. It is actually a defined process.
I don't
However-
think it's defined enough.
Gamerblocks.
The trial is implied,
By the way,
not required.
Gamerblocks, you can't interrupt. You're not part of the debate. We're not on audience questions yet.
Okay, so
Oh,
it's in-
Zimbal's here. Hey, Zimbal.
Hey.
Fuck off. Get
Hey,
in
any
the
more
audience.
any more debate do you wish to go on before I ask the next question?
I'm fine.
All
I'm
right,
good.
now for the juicy questions. What is your stance on independence from Olderach?
Ooh.
You need to ask a person, Tenko.
Yeah.
You know the order. Let's start off with Mining Boy.
Yeah, I'm quite neutral on it. I just believe the people should be heard. A referendum will be implemented. It's really off to say. And there should be a framework, even if it doesn't pass. A framework should be illustrated, so if it does, we aren't just curb stomped immediately. Which Quasar is already doing. I just seek to continue it as well.
You want like a button that we could theoretically push to leave Alderash?
Great. One sec, I'll be back.
If you're done, I'll take up if you're okay with that, Mining Boy.
I'm fine.
I don't
Sure.
have my rules. Well,
Yes,
I
you
don't
do,
have
Fail.
the
Fail, you
server.
do. I just checked. So I.
No, I don't
I would
have
say-
it.
Yes, you do. You have the tourism office role, and I checked. You have the ability to trust people.
I'll take care of it, Phil.
Yeah.
No,
X,
I'm
take-
saying on
message
Discord.
message X, Phil.
I'll do it, Phil.
Yeah. So
Okay.
So I pretty much agree with Mining Boy. This is sort of a general issue. I had put up a bill to solve this, but basically, with diplomatic actions, is the realm of the Guardian. Technically, the Congress doesn't have the ability to influence it. However, if I'm Guardian, I will both put forward a bill to remedy that, and should it happen before then, I will allow a referendum to go ahead. I'm pretty much neutral on Uldarash. I can see the benefits and negatives of both sides, but if people want it, I would allow it to go ahead if a bill hasn't gone ahead by that point to allow people to have referendums on important diplomatic decisions. I had proposed a bill that would do that several weeks ago, but it got shot down in the Congress because of some wording people didn't like. So I will rewrite that to make it better. But even if that doesn't happen, I'll still allow a referendum to go ahead on it.
May I take over then?
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
yeah. So, I would say that I am definitely pro-independence. So as I currently see it, Montroig is a self-sufficient and independent nation already. And so this would really just be taking it to the formal level, as I see it. And I don't see a reason why we shouldn't do this. But another thing to add to that is that I am definitely against a hard exit, though. So what I mean by this is that I do want to, before we leave Alderash officially, settle some diplomatic ties so that we still have some benefits, like for example, not being fucking stomped to death by Alderash. So yeah, that's what I think
May
on the
I just
subject.
mention something on top of that that's related?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, as someone who's had diplomatic dealings with the rest of Uldrash, may I just say, for all of our sakes, I would hope that whoever is the guardian in charge of that solves it diplomatically, because Aurora alone could single-handedly defeat every other nation in Uldrash. So I would hope that I think we can all agree, all three of us, if we're the people in charge of overseeing that, we will try and get the most diplomatic solution possible.
Definitely.
I mean,
Yeah.
ideally, the exit will be
Ideally.
peaceful,
Now,
completely.
if we have to, obviously we will be forced to fight, but I will promise to do my best to avoid that outcome. if an independence vote turns back a yes result.
I think we all agree on that.
Yes. Just an important thing to keep in mind.
However, may I ask a question?
Who is this?
Gamerblocks.
He's back.
While Tenko's gone, I think we can all agree to just take some
I'm
questions.
here.
Oh, Tenko, you're here.
Oh.
Gamerblocks wanted to ask a question, if that's okay.
I just came back, so. Oh yeah, he's allowed to ask a question.
My question was, if you couldn't do Ulderash, what would the future Guardian do? Or if let's just say Montroig became separate from Ulderash, what would you do with smaller nations nearby that were independent from Ulderash?
Is this to anyone in particular, or just all of us?
All of us.
We're going in order, or I'll go first then.
Sure.
I would suggest that if we want to, we can put out petitions, ask if they want to join, and if they do, they join. If they don't, they don't. We respect each nation's sovereignty, or will for or against it. To mention, we would also like to build economic ties with our neighbors as well by implementing a better trade situation, which would try to avoid all I don't know the word, incompatibilities between two markets.
Yeah, I would say that in a hypothetical situation where Montroig left, I would still very much be attempting to have the best diplomatic ties possible to the other nations of Ulderash, because regardless of whether or not we're a member, they are our neighbors, and it would be preferable, obviously, to have good diplomatic ties, especially with, say, Chevkri, Alekgrad, because you guys are the closest to us. Chevkri specifically, since they're also democratic, they're the only other nation on the continent which really is.
Actually, Alekgrad is also now democratic.
Oh, well then great. Also very happy to have stronger diplomatic ties with Alekgrad.
However, just the leader still does hold power for life after being democratically elected.
Yes, I assumed you would have something like that, Gamerbox.
Presidential dictatorship.
Regardless, you're still more democratic even with that than 90% of the other countries in Rathnir as such. You know, I'd still obviously be up for having strong economic ties. Also, regardless, since you're close. Yeah, Zimble.
Yeah, true. I'm glad. See, I agree with diplomacy.
Before we move on.
Let Zimble speak, I think.
Oh, sorry.
So yeah, I pretty much agree on this subject. So what I think of this whole thing is that, well, of course, we want to spread democracy as much as possible, as we know and probably all agree it is one of the best working systems currently. But I definitely do not want to push anything on other nations either by war, because as the saying goes, war has no winners. And so I will definitely be trying to keep it peaceful and only wage war in case we need to defend.
War. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing.
I agree with that.
I mean,
It
you might
makes for good
have to do
propaganda.
avenge.
The next question. Also, I'm about to do. I just got in the server. I'm about to get into the thing.
Great.
So, can we ask questions of the audience?
I think Tenko's still got questions left.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions left before audience can ask.
Did we get a podium for that, or?
Am I allowed to get a podium if I enter?
Normally the person just stands at the front where Coco's standing, basically.
No. Alright, so next question. There's been a lot of crime lately. How do you plan to fix it?
What?
There's been a lot of crime. There's been a lot of crime. There's been a lot of crime lately. How do you plan to fix it?
Oh.
My first?
Yeah, sure. I guess we're just going in this order from now on.
Okay. Support a voluntary night watch for all who want to join and prevent theft. Essentially, just patrol around in their free time, if they want to look for thievery or anything. I also think the justice system it has come a long way, but it was a bit helpless when it started. But I think it is being fixed, and I would encourage that growth.
Yeah, I would continue to support our newly created National Guard to attempt to stop this. Again, an easy solution to this, which I've been trying to implement, is when new players join, attempting to make sure their houses are properly protected from any other players that might break in. Obviously, this has some limits. For instance, if players don't decide on a plot before they leave, or if they join, I invite them and then they just leave. But this is generally a good way to stop thievery. We did apprehend the thieves that had been causing the break-ins, so the current spat has stopped, luckily enough. Going forward, we have most houses of active players are at this point fully claimed. There haven't been any major issues in the last few days, so I personally take that as a sign of better things to come. But obviously, there's no way to completely stop it, but we can all do our best to try and fight it, and I think we've done a decent job so far.
Really quick.
So yeah, sure.
You said that most of the houses of active players are open, then I would just like to say, why is my house?
Pardon?
Cut out.
Most houses of active players are claimed, then may I add, why is my house unclaimed?
Your house is claimed. I claimed it for you.
Oh my god, get wrecked.
I claimed it for you the first
another
day that you
Yes,
joined.
it's the fact that when I left Older I was removed access to Chab, and then I got re-added, and now I can still interact with my house except for the top where it's claimed by
Yes,
Chab.
that should be because the claims remember you. So even if you leave the nation, when you come back, they still remember you.
Why can't I interact with a certain part of the claim?
That's interesting. Oh, did you ever get added back into Taroha properly?
Yes.
Did you? Because what it sounds like has happened here is you don't have claims for the city in general, but you do have permission for your house.
Claims for the city in general.
Well, I can check your claim right now for you if you'd like.
Right.
I believe it's just called Tenko.
It's called Chab.
Did I call it Chab? Tenko / yes, it's just called Chab. Trusted players. Yep, you are there for it. And then rolls.
Oh god.
Oh, wait, I think that was resolved recently.
Nope, yep, it's all resolved. All the claims are fine for it. So I believe this might be an issue where you don't have claims for Taroha in general, but you do for your house, and you've built slightly above the claim I made.
Well, that's one thing I do know.
We can sort that later, though. Symbol, up for you next, Fun. How are you still?
Yes. So, yes, I very much agree on your policy of continuing to claim every new house and every new plot that is assigned to a player. But I do want to add a point to this debate. So you probably all already know the scandal that happened just a small time ago. So what happened is that we know that Marshall Grieper / Bojack Horseman was guilty of the theft, and
As well as Booth.
yeah, and so he was put on trial, but then acquitted because he did steal before the actual law on stealing was passed. So what I'm trying to say here is that we need to expand the legal system and do it fast so that we can prevent situations like this from happening. Of course, I'm not saying that we should
Box your cameras on.
So of course, I'm not saying that we should persecute people for a crime that was not illegal when they committed it, but still, I do want to expand the legal system very fast so that we can avoid situations like these in the future.
Whose camera was on there?
Next question. Does anyone like to add something before I ask the next question?
Yes.
All right.
What do you, the candidates, prefer? Trade by land or trade by sea?
So it's a separate question that would have to be asked at the end of the thing.
It would have something to add.
It was specifically questions to do with the current topic. There'll be an open audience question at the end.
Okay.
Anything to do with
Um,
with crime lately? Anything else?
There's something I'd like to mention too. When it
Yeah.
comes to constitutional reform around crime, the 6th article of the Bill of Rights Amendment allows for the disenfranchisement of all former conflicts. It does not state what crimes they have committed. So simple theft, I don't think justifies having their entire rights stripped permanently. I want to reform that to clearly define crimes. So under certain crimes, more like, I guess, a felony, which is more like murdering someone on the server, who is part of the Montroig or exile type crimes, would have their rights revoked, but nothing minor.
May I ask which bill that was that does that?
The Bill of Rights Amendment, Article 6.
Bill of Rights Amendment, Article 6.
Yes, it was edited since I wrote my thing. That's how it
Yes.
currently stands.
I didn't realize that Internet Kiwi hadn't edited that because I gave that exact same feedback to him when he initially showed me the form. He said he'd change it. Okay, good to know.
Oof.
Well, I agree in that case then. Thought that wasn't a thing. I agree.
Did Ix just die?
I don't know, he does that sometimes.
Next
Dude,
person.
I got fucking kicked for being AFK.
Let me guess, you didn't go and get our beacon before you got kicked.
Sure.
Next question, yeah, sure. Oh, or yeah, Zimbal, did you want to say something on that?
Excluded
Nope.
from Mining Boy because he doesn't have a party, but should people vote you for your party or for you as an individual?
As an individual.
What?
Would someone vote you for your party or you as an individual? This does not include Mining Boy 12 because he does not have a party.
Yeah.
In which case, I'll take it. I'll say me as an individual. I suppose the party helps, right? You should take it into consideration. It helps to give a brief general overview of a person's politics, so it's definitely something useful to think about, but it shouldn't be the thing that decides your vote. You should vote on the candidates as individuals rather than their party politics. I'll mention that specifically with the SMP, we don't force our members to vote a specific way, so even members of the SMP should take into consideration the individual candidates and shouldn't feel obligated just to vote for me because I'm their leader. Yeah.
All right.
y-
How about you, Mr. Zimble?
Yes, so what I think of this question is that you definitely should vote me as a person and not for the party. So I think that the Barriers Party, of course, it is my party and I am very proud to be in it, and I very much do like like the party, but also I think that I really can give you more than just Barryism, and I want to show you that I can be more than well, a priest and a religious person. So I do not want you to vote me just because you believe in Barry or something. I find that rather ridiculous. I think you should really vote for the person rather than the party.
All right. So that is your answers. Next question. This is more juicy than the last one. What are your plans for colonization and the New World?
Oh, God. I think we all touched on it a bit, but we can go over it again, I guess.
I think that y'all touched on it a little, but not fully. I feel like it's its own separate things. We have a couple
That's
questions.
fair, yeah.
Okay. So, I was saying is that I think there should be a basic outpost for resources, as it's quite stripped bare over here. There are a lot of complaints about not being able to find ores or anything, and especially netherite and quartz is just impossible to find over here without significant threats to losing all your XP and items, which is unfortunate. But that's all I really support from Montroig itself, is just a simple outpost to process materials and provide a base. Otherwise, I think we should do the same thing we do here, and would be to promote democracies in New Rathnir, and also try to negotiate more economics, as you can transfer items between each world.
I would just like to clarify, you cannot currently transfer items between each world, but it will be something
You should
they
be.
add.
You should be.
They'll be adding it soon. I agree mostly with Mining Boy. I have always said I believe most people should be aware of my stance on this. I've mentioned it a lot of times, but I support a single town. I wouldn't even call it a colony, a single town of Montroig in the New World. I want to, as I've said, keep as much of the world as possible for the natives. I would be against any old world nation taking more than one, maybe two at max towns for themselves. I mostly want it for the cool new biomes in the new world. The mountain biomes, which I've personally said I want to build a town on, are generated incredibly interestingly and would provide for, if nothing else, incredibly unique architecture you wouldn't get to be able to build here in the old world. So I'm mostly interested in that. My plans for colonization are, well, I'll be putting these plans ahead since I'm currently the Guardian. I'll be putting these ahead at the Congress. We will be putting forward an idea to attempt to get a provisional mayor of a town sorted out in advance so that there's no issues with it when it actually goes ahead. I'll be asking for people to put their name forward, and I will then let people vote on who they would like to have as a provisional leader until the town has a more solid population that can vote on its own mayor. The town will then follow the same law that any other town does, which will be that while they have to follow federal law, they will be able to have an elected mayor, and they will be allowed to pass their own local laws, as long as they don't violate the Constitution. Yeah, that's my plan. Zimble?
Yes, so as you may know, I am mainly a builder, and that is my main skill that I like to practice. And so I am also, well, not to say that the plans of the other candidates aren't valid. I mean, I greatly agree with them, but I am also concerned with building this new colony in a more planned way than Terra and Montroig altogether. So, as you probably have already noticed, Terra is very cramped. And so I would propose trying to build our new colony in a very Mannheim style layout. So what this means is that I want to create a very planned out city so we can create buildings and live our lives there without the constrictions of other plots interfering.
Um, is that all? Has everyone spoken?
I think we mostly have the same idea. I think Zimble just wants to overplan it.
All right. And then that means that the next question is: are you planning on negotiating with people from the New World? This is pretty much negotiating from with the New World, or taking the land by force.
I do not plan to take any land by force. I think everyone should consent to it. And I mean, if people in the New World want to join Montroig, I think we might try to work out a sort of Montroig polity type thing if they really want to. But I think we should avoid that, though. I'd rather not have two different domains, even if they're willing. But I do feel that it is key for Montroig's success in the future to have strong diplomatic ties with all nations on both worlds, including New Rathnir. Despite how new they are, they could be very welcomed in the future.
Yeah, I have to say I pretty much agree with all of those points. I very much, as I believe I've already stated, very much disagree with taking any more land than a single town for ourselves. And that town should not interfere with claims made by already existing natives to the land. It should be an empty piece of land that no one has a claim to already. I very much disagree with any old world nation militarily intervening with new world nations. I believe they should be left alone to develop by themselves. except for diplomatically, of course. I'm very happy to have diplomatic and even economic ties to New World nations. I think I agree. Even if a New World nations wants to join Montroig, I think we should hold off on it and we should instead support them, but perhaps allow them to keep their independence. Because a decision like that is something that you make in the moment, but I think they could come to perhaps regret in time, and I wouldn't want that to happen. I would want them to stay independent and fully the masters of their own fate, basically. But I would be happy to help them economically and with resources, especially if they're a democracy. Zim?
Yes, so what I want to say to this situation is that, well, the natives haven't really claimed all the land yet, so I think that we will, we should leave them be at first and take, as Quasis already said, an empty piece of land. And I do agree that we should definitely join forces and cooperate with them. So in means of trade and diplomacy. And I even think that we should try to protect them from uh, being taken over if they do decide to cooperate with us greatly. So maybe even try to form maybe a faction to protect the natives.
Um, and is there anyone else who would like to add anything, or?
No, I think we're mostly in agreement. So.
All right. Next question. What are your plans regarding specific legislations or lawmaking?
As I already stated, I want to implement full private.
Have y'all already basically stated that?
Yeah, well, that's the question you asked about lawmaking, and I'm saying I want to also add a sort of bill deadline. So I know people might forget about bills, but it's not healthy to democracy if you propose a bill just like 1 or 2 hours before, so no one can actually read it before they vote on it. And I think that's detrimental. But I also support. I will illustrate again about full private ballots, as I feel there's a lot of intimidation that may happen in the future, and a lot of mob mentality. And one of the few ways to break that up is to remove people's names from their choices.
I would just like to say, can Ghibli please stop breaking the fucking set? Thank you. I would agree mostly. I will just point out the issue with everyone having private ballots means that they can never be fully private. First of all, someone will have to see them if we were to go down, say, a Google Forms route, which would be the most obvious one. The issue with that,
block out.
yes,
I'll just block out part of the spreadsheet.
yeah, but the issue with this, obviously, is that I will say it already takes a while to set up all the laws that are being voted on. I don't know that many Guardians are going to be willing to go through the whole process, especially as we continue to get bigger, and we've seen situations where you have 15, upwards of like 15 laws going to get voted on at once. That's a lot of work for one person to do, to make like the 15 separate Google Forms that are needed for that. I'm not necessarily against the idea. I do agree with the idea of having private ballots. I think that is something that is useful for democracy, and it could be an issue with intimidation in the future. I'll very easily grant that. I would just want everyone to be aware that it's going to be quite a lot of work to do that. Then, I'm sorry, Mining Boy, what was your first point? I appear to have forgotten it with Ghibli mining in the wall.
I would like to counter yours first, and saying it could just be one thing with everyone's votes. It doesn't have to be 15 different spreadsheets, and I'm more than willing to do this. It's not my first rodeo with all this stuff. I've done polling before, so I understand how it all works. And well, it was the first thing. Oh God.
Yeah, you mentioned.
Y'all forgot.
Oh, the deadline, right?
Yeah.
I would like to say this point is, to my mind, irrelevant, considering during the Congress meetings we read out every single bill before they go to vote. So if you don't have time to read, if you don't want to read through them all yourself, you can just join the Congress and then hear them. And even then, there's a 48-hour voting period. You have literally 2 days to read them before you decide whether or not you want to vote. So this issue that you seem to mention is only an issue if you don't come to the Congress, and if you don't come to the Congress, you still have 48 hours to read and vote on them all.
Should we not
It
counter
just
it
seems like
anyways?
it just seems irrelevant to me personally. There's such a long voting period that it seems like people already have plenty of time
I
to
just think
go
it's
over them
best to
themselves.
cover our bases. That's my
Maybe
opinion.
I just disagree. Maybe if it got, if more things got added in the future, maybe if we got to a point where there were like 30 bills or whatever, then that would be fair. I just think right now it's not really a necessary thing.
But I agree.
I'll give it to you that in the future it could be an issue worth revisiting, though.
But I think we should do it now when it's more malleable than have to regret not doing it in the future.
Fair enough. Zimble?
Well, so okay, this is really distracting.
Yeah, whoever's
So-
building, could you please cut it out? Like, actually, and I know it's you, Ghibli. I know you have like ADHD, but could you just sit still for 5 minutes?
You leave? Wait, what was that?
No, he's still here.
Get out, so
Seriously,
should
get
I-
out of the roof, dude.
You have a
Should I
fireman's
continue?
pole now.
Yes, please continue. He's just being an annoying little prick.
Yes, so on the topic of Mining Boy's supposed policy of well, implementing a deadline, I do not agree with this very much, as I think that, well, the system is currently working fine, and I don't see the problem, even if we do highly increase in well, in count of, for example, people in parliament or bills. Yeah, and on the topic of lawmaking itself, well, I really do not see any major improvements needing to be made there. I think the system currently is fine as we have it, and I want to conserve this and keep it that way.
All right.
Can I ask any more questions you have?
Pardon?
How many more questions do you have, Tenko?
Oh, yeah, I do have questions. Sorry.
How many more do you have?
How many more do I have? I only have 2 more questions.
Perfect. Then we can get to audience questions.
Are there any budgetary concerns regarding your plans? If so, how do you plan to remedy them?
Did you say are there any
Can you
vegetarians?
repeat that? Yeah.
Are there any budgetary concerns regarding your plans? If so, how do you plan to remedy them?
Budgetary.
Do you mean?
Okay.
Did
No,
you say
budgetary.
budget? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the problem is that I really don't have access to the treasury and budget, and if I see any flaws, I'll try to balance the budget. That's what I fully support, and that requires increasing taxes. Then so be it. But there will be tax relief for those who can't afford it.
Well, I can say that as Guardian, I have been doing this the last week. The Ministry of Resources and Defense, I don't know if you know, the Ministry of Defense has currently raised 100,000 for itself to outfit itself using the new donation system. I can't take credit for that, of course. That was Demetrius, the new Minister of Defense. However, with the Minister of Resources, Buck, who's also the Vice Secretary of my party, or one of them, Arcadian's the other one, obviously, but he's been instituting plans for a mass mining program. To attempt to gather a calculated I believe he calculated 1.17 million if it went all according to plan, for which we needed the beacon, which we need X for, which is obviously an issue. He hasn't done that yet, but when he does, we will be able to get on with the plan, which, as I say, should generate, at the very minimum, hundreds of thousands for Montroig, and shouldn't take too long to do. That's been the plan we've been working on together. I think it's a good one. As I say, the military is pretty much able to fund itself at this point using the donation system, which is, can I say, great. I was not neither me nor Demetrius were expecting the kind of donations that it's gotten so far. So I guess while everyone's here, I'd like to say thanks for that. That's actually been really good. It's helped to really not let us worry so much about getting instantly owned by anyone should we ever go to war. But yeah, Zimble, and I'm gonna have to go get some water now, so I'll be back in a minute.
Yes, so I definitely think that this mining project will be very beneficial for us. And that, well, the money that we collect from this can be, of course, then invested in various different ways. One of those ways I want to use this money is to support the socially and monetarily weak in our country, so that no one has to worry about being evicted ever again, as this has happened quite a lot of times in the few days I've been here. Well, not few days, but you know what I mean.
Days.
And so yeah, I want to try to push an economic policy of uh, self-sufficiency to a great extent, but support those that cannot manage to do this.
All right. I have one last question. If anyone wants to add anything about that question, then go ahead. And I have my question.
Well, I gotta admit, I don't know much of the inner workings because I'm not in a government seat right now. But I do think the mining operation will be a great way to increase the economy. I think also part of the money should be reserved for more investments. So if people want to start certain things, they should have access to apply for money to start it, which should help grow the economy generally, not just from resources itself.
So may I also say another thing on that topic?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I definitely agree that that increasing our government treasury is really a great thing to do. And I do also want to again invest some of that money on well, developing cultural projects in Montroig and Teruja. So as I see it currently, there's not really much going on here in terms of cultural things. So one of these
Oh God, I
culture
just hit this. Oh shit. No. Oh no.
I'm just gonna continue talking. So one of the cultural things I already proposed would, for example, be the Pan-Refni Games. But also smaller things like occasional, for example, parties for or the people of our towns and of our state. Um, and also, yeah, developing uh, more projects that bring us closer together in general.
All right.
Pretend like I'm still there.
All right. One last question.
I'm gonna put CharacterIT here. That's
All right. One last question to end them all. Do you want to set up trade relations? If so, where and why?
Because I'm first. I think we already all went over this a bit, but I do support massive trade relations
I'm
for
back,
democratic.
gamers.
What?
I'm back. Sorry.
Okay. I support like greater trade relations with all democracies. I feel it's essential for our collective survival in a world quite hostile to that form of government to cooperate a lot with trade. And I think part of it should be a more collective investment for everyone. So if one nation, so the sort of an injury to one is an injury to all type argument, where if one nation is suffering economically, it is part of our responsibility to take part of the burden on us to help support them get through their hardships, so that they may in the future help us get through our hardships as well.
Yeah, what was the question? Sorry.
The
Trade.
question was, was, do you want to set up trade relations? If so, where and why?
All right, great. Yeah. So I have two things: short term and long term. So short term, the two obvious trade partners are Chevcree and Alekgrad. They're two of our closest nations. They're both democratic to varying extents, with Chevcree obviously being the most. Chevcree's a great partner to trade with in the short term. As I said, they're right next to us. They have a decent player count. I think they're slightly bigger than us. They have a lot of pre-existing infrastructure, a lot of roads. We already have good relations with them, so they seem like the obvious target. In the long term, I agree with what I heard of Mining Boy. We should set up relations more specifically with other democracies on the server. There aren't enough of us that we can really afford to not work together. And besides, we should work together anyway. It would be useful to help build the economy of all the various nations, since most other imperialist dictators, monarchies look at us with, at best, contempt, at worst, open disdain. So we should definitely attempt to stick together and boost all of our economies while doing so, since democracies tend to be some of the fastest growing nations on the server.
All right. So yeah, I do agree that trading has to be increased with other nations, especially with other nations in Alderash, as we do have closer relations to them. But I also think that the harbor that we have recently built, thanks to Fael, I want to thank him for that here. That this could be a great prospect to increase our trading. So the shops that will be set up there could really bring more prominence to Montroig and Terriger. So, alright, he's killing himself. So in the way that we. This is really distracting me.
He
Someone
shouldn't die if
drowning?
it makes you feel better. No, he drank a drink which will take him to half a heart. He shouldn't die.
Okay, he's at 1 health.
Yep, there you go.
Alright, so where was I? Oh yeah, so I think that expanding the harbor and adding more shops could be a real useful thing to do to kind of develop our harbor district into maybe like, well, this is a bold example, but a second Walmart perhaps, so that people from all over Ravnir, not only Alderash, come here to do their business and trade.
All right. Anyone else before we move on to audience questions?
I think we've all spoken our mind.
All right. That means that we can move on to audience questions. All right, ask away.
Yeah, so I had a question regarding the other cities. So obviously we have Zeroha, which has been the capital and city with the most advances. However, I would like to ask you which will do with the other cities we have. So Azura and Aboldia, specifically since we know there's the pilot games in UNI.
Anyone specific or to all of us?
Well, to all of you.
Okay, well, I stated before, I think we should provide economic incentives. I don't think we can have a right to enforce people to join something, even if it is dying and we need it. But I do support economic incentives, like certain base wage for a while the city is growing, in order to help promote people to move over. We can't force people to move over, but we can encourage them to.
Oh, damn it. Sorry.
Yeah.
What happened?
With let me think. What was the question again, Coco? I'm sorry.
What are your plans for Bolgia
Oh, the
and
other
Azura?
cities, right? Yeah. So with Azura specifically, I've decided what I think I'm going to do is just merge it with Taroha. It's very close. Part of it literally touches the Taroha border effectively. Also, no one lives there currently, and it wasn't a town we started, so I feel the best way to revitalize it is to just connect it to the city. That would also make Taroha one of the biggest cities on the server in terms of land size, which is nice, certainly. And
Yeah.
it would also make it much easier to repopulate it if it wasn't a separate city, and we could just make housing plots in it for Taroha citizens that are new, right? Instantly get more population in that whole area as well. Plus, a lot of the areas are already set up in advance, so that would be useful. Outside of that, with Baldia needs, as far as I'm concerned, pretty much complete redesign. I really like the idea. An underwater city, it was effectively started to be a basically unsiegeable town, which it basically is. It's incredibly hard to attack. The problem with that is, if any of you have been there, it's effectively 1x2. It's like one wide, two tall hallways of stone, which again, very easy to defend in, not great for living in. So I would propose with Baldia doing a complete redesign. That should probably be the first one we hit. After my plan is to do this after we finish the outer walls, because at that point the major renovations of Taroha are done. At that point, it's mostly just building housing plots. And any other builds people want. The actual defenses are basically fully done. So we can move on to focusing somewhat on the other towns. So as I say with Baldia, effectively a complete redesign. Most of the town needs to be redone. Some of the domes are okay as they are, but a lot of corridors and inner, some of the domes themselves need to be remade. As we merge with Roha and New Hanoi, we would get ready for the game. So more than it looks like there's several house apartment blocks, so we just have to build a couple more basically to get it looking decent, as well as building an outer wall design, which Vernon had a design for at one point, so we can revisit that as well. Zimble?
Yeah.
Alright.
So, I wanted to say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello?
hmm
Do
Yeah.
you hear me? Oh yeah, okay. So,
Yeah.
as I wanted to say, so I think you've all heard my extensive plans for New Hanoi to revitalize and well, get prestige to the area. So talking about Azura, yes, I do agree that we should annex it. Um, and and further, I'm planning to, well, remove some of the more ugly old houses that have been abandoned. Well, luckily there are not too many of those in Azura. But also, I do want to keep some of the, well, more interesting structures and do preserve them as for tourism, for example. So one example of this would be the Japanese castle they have there, if you have seen that, that I would like to preserve, for example. Yeah. And regarding Baldia, well, I do not have a concrete plan on that right now. Um, but I do think that it is not enough to just reform, well, the buildings and the corridors. Uh, we need a whole new idea to bring life to the area and actually interest people in settling there because, well, as we've already seen, the just the idea of Baldia wasn't enough, apparently.
If you're going to be drinking like that.
What?
Ghibli's just getting drunk and then doing RP, so we're just asking to not stand on the stage while he does that. Sorry,
Yes,
Zimble.
so as I was saying, I would like to try and come up with a more coherent idea for Baldia, as I do not see this working any other way, and I will definitely try to get some opinions of other people and maybe even hold a small contest for submitting a redesign and, well, concept ideas for bringing back life to Baldia. Yes, that's it.
Alright.
I have no other questions.
Hey, anyone else have any questions? I would like to wrap this up soon. I have to go and have dinner.
Okay.
No one seems to have any questions, so I will be wrapping it up. Thank you for coming to today's political argument. I hope you had this was an informative session, and we'll see you at the elections.
Yay.
Okay.
I'm
Nice
not your
debate.
host, Prot, and I'd like to, and that's the end of the fourth Guardian election debate.